No joke, we're lucky. New Tecnam's treating us well.
Right, your controls?
My controls.
Your controls.
I just realized my volume was muted.
Do you have any twin tips?
You need to take action right away.
Everyone out there, you got that from Andrew. Differential braking's not enough for you. You twin guys.
We're too cocky.
Definitely something you'd want to figure out on the ground and not in the air.
Hey guys, Wayne from Sling Pilot Academy here. I'm really excited about this week's video. Last week we covered the pre-flight on the Tecnam P2006T. Hope you enjoyed it. This week is going to be part 2, where we're going to do a startup and run-up. Super excited for our new students starting next week. We've got over 30 new students from all over the country to start training here at Sling. Enjoy the video.
Ready? Hey guys, I'm here today with Andrew, and we're here to show you how to start up the twin Tecnam P2006T. Let's get started.
So, the first thing that we're going to run through before we get anything fired up in the engine is going to be our passenger briefing. Although we don't have anyone in the back with us, it's still important that you and I are on the same page in case we have any emergencies or any abnormalities arise. So first thing we're going to do is talk about seatbelts. We have the same kind of car style seatbelts. We're just going to make sure that we keep them on at all times throughout the flight. Anytime we're on the ground, we're taking off or coming into land. Next for the seat. So the seat is adjustable from the bottom here. There's a bar you can pull up on to move close, move back. You know, you're comfortable enough that you have control of the rudders and the brakes, but you want to make sure that you're not close enough that the gear accidentally comes up from your knee. Seats are all set in place. Air vents. Yeah, you got your air vents down here, so adjustable as needed. What's nice about these new Tecnams is that we have an electric fan. So in the summer, we can turn the electric fan on and get airflow before the engine actually gets started.
It's nice.
Oh my God, it's a
I've
huge
heard
step
some
up.
things about, looking in the Tecnam.
Yeah, it's nice, but you know, like, you lose a lot of weight, lose a lot of water weight from the sweat. So ups and downs to it. Depends on how you want to look at it. But now that we got our air vent set, we had our fun with the fan. Anytime that we're flying, we're always going to be looking for traffic, both you and I. Thing that I'm going to brief you on, you already know this obviously, but for your push-to-talk, your push-to-talk is going to be this little white knob that you have down here on the front left of your yoke. But you want to make sure that you don't press down on that at any point while you're flying on accident. So from there, the most important thing we're going to talk about is the emergency egress, so how we're going to exit the plane in the case that we do have a forced landing, anything like that. So for you and I, since we're both up front and we don't have easy access to the hatch or the rear door, the way that we're going to exit the plane if we need to is I'm going to have you step out first from your door, and I'll slide over and hop out too. If we had anyone in the back, it would be passengers first out, whatever door is acceptable. You would be second, I would be the last person. After that, the escape hatch, again, we're going to just briefly talk about it if we have passengers on board. Like I said, during our pre-flight, we have this little wire up here. It's to stop it from accidentally opening. In the case you have an emergency, it can easily be snapped just by actually rotating the latch. So just briefly on that, if we have any passengers on board. Right, last thing we're going to check is our fire extinguisher, so we're just going to point it out so that you and I, or else anyone in the back, knows where it is.
So it's down here under my left leg for anyone that can't see it.
And in the case that we do need to use it, you will be the one to grab.
Perfect, I'll be ready for that.
Alright, so now our passengers briefing complete. So you have any questions for me?
I do not.
Alrighty, so let's do our before engine starts. So when you're flying the multi, I think it's really important that the instructor and the student actually start practicing some crew resource management. So obviously this is a lot more plane to handle than what you have with the Sling. At no point are you going to be flying a multi-engine solo, or at least here at the Academy. That's not what we do, and very few people actually do that. What I like to do is I like to kind of run the cockpit as a crew. So normally we'll have a pilot monitoring and a pilot flying. So in this case, for this lesson, I'm going to be the pilot flying. I'm going to have you monitoring. What you're going to be in charge of is the instrumentation, monitoring everything, making sure that we're in the green and we're getting no abnormal readings. And also, I'm going to have you run the checklist for me.
Okay, sounds good.
Alright, so the way that we'll run it, I'm going to have you start with our before engine start.
Alright,
and we'll kind of start running down each one and running through to make sure it's complete.
Okay, so pre-flight inspection, we've done that one.
That is complete.
Passenger briefing.
Any questions from you?
Oh, sir.
Alright, that is complete.
And seat belts, adjusted and locked, we both got them on.
It is good.
Doors, mine's latched, how's yours?
Back door is latched and closed.
We checked the lock on that one.
And we always want to check, make sure you check your CAS message. Flip door open. So with the Tecnams, make sure there's a little red tab back there to flip. So it's locking the door. It indicates to us as pilots that, you know, if the person in the back may have accidentally unlocked their door, it's just letting us know. So we want to make sure both of those are closed and it's indicating that they're closed.
Start battery.
Start battery. Like we did at the end of the pre-flight, we're going to check one more time before our startup. So we'll press down, needle to go up into the green. It's good. Next thing we're going to check is going to be the parking brake. Go ahead and put pressure down on both toe brakes right there and hold that pressure on them And as you do that, I'm going to pull down here on that little guy right there. Now that it's pulled out, it's going to hold the pressure that you just set. Parking brake is now set.
Perfect. All right, parking brake check. Now we're going to go choke as required.
So the choke for the engine is going to be these little guys down here. If you want the choke on, you're going to push them all the way down. But in our case, since the engine's already been running today, we shouldn't need to choke. Well, you never know. So for now, we'll just leave it off.
Moving over, carb heat off.
Carb heat, so we're going to make sure our carb heat is off. The up position on these two yellow bumps right here, this is the carb heat. They're pushed up, the carb heat is off.
All right, and we want propellers forward.
The props are forward.
And we want
Throttle idle.
We want gear selector down.
Gear selector is down.
Perfect. We want master on.
Master is on.
We have the master on just so that we could be talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Next we have gear indicator lights, 3.
So one more time, we're going to check those 3 lights. Again, if those micro switches that we checked, if those weren't there or weren't working, we wouldn't be getting a green.
Okay, now we want to put the flaps to take off.
All right, so flaps to take off. So I'm just going to put this up 1 notch, and we're going to let it go, and we'll stop it once it hits takeoff. The flaps are now in the takeoff position. We can both double check outside our windows too. Visual check. Yep. All right, sweet.
Now we want to make sure the strobe light is on.
Strobe lights. I'll go ahead and do that one. So that's on my side here. So the strobe light is on.
Circuit breakers check.
All right, so we got 2 sides for the circuit breaker. So I'll let you check your side. I'll do mine over here. There's a top and a bottom row, so make sure you check both. Right side is checked.
Side is checked.
All right, sweet. So that's our before engine start. So we'll move on to the actual engine start check if you're ready.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so fuel selectors, tank to engine.
Fuel selector is going to be these guys up top. You want to make sure each one's pointing to its respective engine. So the right selector is to the right tank, left is to the left tank.
What we're going to do is make sure the fuel pumps are on.
All right, so fuel pumps. So the Tecnam, each engine has 2 fuel pumps. It has a mechanical one that's attached to the engine and then an electric one. So what these 2 switches up here are going to do is power those standby electric / kind of boost pump. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and get both of them turned on. And what we're going to do is we're going to down here for our fuel PSI. We want to make sure that both of those electric pumps are able to get the engine enough fuel to keep running, so those look good. Now that we've done that, what we're going to do, since we're going to start the right engine first, it's not with the checklist, but this kind of a flow that we do run, is we're going to turn the non-starting engine, so the left-hand side, off.
So the next thing on the checklist is starting engine fuel pump on, which we actually have already done from leaving it on the last time. And then after that is ignitions on.
Alright, so ignitions are going to be our 4 red switches here. So we're going to get both sides ignitions ready. So we're going to go ahead and turn our right 2 on and our left 2. So now the engines are hot. We got fuel flowing to them and the guys are getting power.
Now that our ignitions are on, we're going to go starter engage. So before we do that, that's going to be start engine.
Yep.
We want to make sure that there's no people, no things anywhere near our propellers or our plane, just to make sure that no one's anywhere near.
Yep. All right, so the right side is clear. Downside about not having a window is we can't yell clear prop, so it is important, like you said, to make sure it is completely clear. But there was no one around us, no one near the plane at all, so we're good to get started if you're ready to go.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so again, we're trying with no choke, so we'll try it first. It's a really simple startup. All we're going to do is just press our red button here, and it should fire up. So let's go ahead and try if you're ready. Right side is clear. Clear prop. Here we go. All right, no choke needed. So first thing you're going to do after you get it started up is we're going to make sure that there is some oil pressure building up. Oil temperature is obviously going to be low since the engine's cooled down. Same with the cylinder head temperature. So as long as we got that oil pressure going, we're good. But now that the engine's running, we're getting our oil pressure. We're going to go ahead and we're going to bump our RPMs up to maybe 1,000 or normally like 1,100. Doing that just it helps the gearbox stay smooth so we don't have a rough running engine.
Choke off if required. We didn't have that on, so we leave it off. Alternator field on.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and get our right alternating field on, which it is now going.
Okay, cross bus on.
And we'll get the right hand cross bus on.
Amps volts check.
And so for this side down here, we're going to flip this over to right hand. See our amps are in the green. We're going to go ahead and press down for the volts, and we got a nice charge. So volts and amps are checked.
Moving on, fuel pump off.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and turn the right pump off. So again, we have that mechanical pump now running. We don't need to waste any power on the electric pump.
Alright, now we got repeat for the left engine.
Alright, let's do it.
Okay, so fuel selectors.
It is set left.
Boom, tank is to engine. Fuel pumps.
Is on.
Ignition's on as well.
Are on.
Perfect. Starter, engage.
Alright, so we can make sure the left side is clear. You can yell clear prop.
Clear prop!
Thank you. Alright, you ready to get going? Alright, left engine. There we go.
There we go, no choke again.
No choke. We're lucky. New Tecnam's treating us well. Left engine is up and running. First thing we're going to do again is check that oil pressure. We're always going to make sure that we get oil pressure right away. If this has not come up, the engine needs to shut down because the oil pump's not working, something's wrong, and we don't want to damage the engine.
Alright. Choke if required, that's already off. Alternator field on.
Go ahead and get the left-hand alternator field on.
Cross bus on.
And the left-hand cross bus is on.
Check the amps and volts again. It's going to be the same.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and flip this over to the left-hand side. See that our amps are good. We're going to push in and see our volts are in the green. So everything looks good on this side.
Perfect. Now we're going to turn the fuel pump off again.
Alright, so fuel pump is off.
Perfect. Alright, so now that we've repeated that, we want to make sure the left hand and right hand avionics are on.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and flip left hand and right hand on. So that's going to get our second screen fired up for us here.
And then finally on the list, it is nunciators check.
So nunciator is going to be kind of that CAS system that I was mentioning earlier, where it's going to be any warnings that the plane's giving us. So like if we have a door open, any failure that the G1000 senses, but now it's just warning us the pitot heat's not on, which is acceptable. So those are checked. Alright, so engine starts. Both the engines are running. We're ready to move on for before taxi.
Here we go. Okay, before taxi, we got to get ATIS ABOS copy.
Alright, we'll go ahead and get that right now.
Initial contact, you have Juliet.
Juliet.
Alright, so we got information Juliet, so ATIS is copied.
Altimeter set.
Altimeter is now set for field elevation.
Perfect. Transponder set.
Transponder, we got 1200 going, that's good for us.
Fuel crossfeed.
Alright, so fuel crossfeed, a vital factor to do while you're taxiing. In the case that you have, say, a right engine failure, and you're running only on the left engine, the plane's set up with these two fuel selectors so that you can feed the left engine off the right tank. So you can always grab whatever fuel you need from either tank. So we're going to go up to our fuel selectors, and we're going to switch the right one to the left tank, and the left to the right tank. Alright, so crossfeed is complete.
Alright, crossfeed complete. Set. Taxi light on.
Taxi light is on.
Brakes test.
Alright, so we'll get the brakes tested once we get our taxi clearance. We'll circle back to that one.
Perfect, okay. Instruments check.
Instruments check. So a couple things I like to check here. Things is I do a quick engine check. So we can already see our cylinder heads are heating up, the oil temperature is coming up, our PSI, RPMs are good, manifold's good, our fuel quantity, our fuel pressure. Now that we looked over at the engine instruments, we're going to move over to the actual G1000 itself. We're going to make sure the AHRS is loaded up completely as well as the ADC, so that we have nothing that looks too concerning except that'll go away once we get moving.
Okay, standby AI check as required.
So standby AI is going to be our standby attitude instruments and all that. We're going to make sure that our altimeter is set the current field elevation, which we have 3027, 3027. Perfect. We're going to make sure it looks like it's wings level. Everything looks good there.
Perfect.
So before taxi is complete, so if you're ready, we can go ahead and call up ground and get our taxi.
Let's do it.
All right. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take controls of the plane right now.
All right, your controls.
My controls.
Your controls. Make sure my feet are out of the way for you.
Very good, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and push back in on that lever for the activate. So I've just released that pressure that you set. And what we're going to do before we call ground is just roll up a little bit. I'm going to test my brakes and have you test yours. So I'm going to let go of the brakes. We're rolling. My brakes work. And I'm going to have you test quick. Brakes are working. Cool. So I got controls again. I got the brakes. Controls. Thank you. My controls. So brakes are tested. So now we'll go ahead and get our taxi clearance.
Torrance ground, twin Tecnam 955 Golf Victor, Sling for the 29 right run up. We got Juliet. And sorry, did you call Golf Victor back? I just realized my volume was muted.
Twin Tecnam 955 Golf Victor, I did call you, runway 29 right, taxi via Echo Alpha Juliet.
So sorry, 29 right via Echo Alpha Juliet, 5 Golf Victor.
We're going to clear left, clear right.
Alright, well, while we're taxiing over here to the run-up area to do the run-up, do you have any tips or tricks, having flown the Tecnam and now some bigger twin-engine aircraft? Do you have any twin tips?
Really with the twins, it's flows. Everything is flow. So when you take your check ride in the multi-engine, a huge factor of it is going to be your response to an engine failure, and everything is flows. So of course it is important that we run our checklist and all that, but sometimes when you're flying these multi-aircraft, and especially the bigger ones, you don't have time to wait. And something happens and you realize it, when you realize you lost an engine, you need to take action. You need to take action right away, and it's vital that you have flows memorized. One thing that every single student does here when they're going for their multi is they'll come in during their off time and they'll sit in the plane and just practice the flows. And they won't turn anything on, they'll just sit here and practice running through it left and right. I don't know how many times I've probably spent a week. Every day for like an hour, I'd sit here doing it. You just need to build up that habit.
Everyone out there, you got that from Andrew. Repetition is key. Flows are your best friend.
Oh yeah, especially when you get up to the bigger planes. One thing that's nice about the multi-engines, this one is really maneuverable, but some of the bigger planes, it's to make kind of a sharp turn. So what you can with these planes is actually use their engine to help you out. So if I kicked in some right power right here, it'll shoot me off the... Just one thing that's helpful. Again, with these ones, you don't need it too much, but if you really do want to make a sharp turn on a dime, you can just kick up, or you can kick up the power on an individual engine, rotate, yeah.
Like, you know, differential braking's not enough for you. You're twin guys.
We're too cocky. We don't, yeah. Hold my left brake and just kick up that right power and it just shoots over. The parking brake is set, so we are ready for our run-up checklist.
All right, run up. Here we go. Brakes hold. So we've done that.
So the parking brake is set. It's really important, just like any plane when you're doing run-up, that you stay very vigilant about where you are on the ground. So as we're doing this whole run-up, you and I are both going to be looking outside, making sure that we're not rolling forward. If we do, whoever sees it first, step on the brakes, release it, get some more pressure down, and reset it.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan. All right, moving on to the next thing. Fuel selector, tank to engine. So we're going to undo the cross.
Yep, so now that we taxied for the last 3 minutes with the cross speed going, so we know the fuel's transferring back and forth. So we know that's good in the case that we need it for an emergency. So now we'll just go ahead and switch back to our right and left.
So essentially, we've been taxiing already after the startup with them cross-feeding from the opposite tanks. Now we're just switching them back and getting it ready for flight. All right, controls, free, full, and correct.
All right, so we're gonna grab our yoke here. We just have to do one side since they're both on the same kind of rod here, but I'm gonna pull all the way out, full extension, all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Everything looks good. We can also look outside of our window too and look at the ailerons, and make sure they're responding correctly.
Perfect. I see the ailerons moving. I see full and free movement. We're looking good.
All right, so the controls are full, free, and correct.
All right, throttle 1,650
All right,
RPM.
so with our throttle right here, unfortunately we just have the analog throttle gauges, but it's pretty easy to see 1600 when you're actually in the plane. What we'll do is we're going to slowly start increasing the power. As we do, again, like we said before, you and I need to be looking outside, kind of using that peripheral vision to make sure we're not rolling forward at all. The left engine is set, and so is the right. So we're at 1600 on both engines.
All right, next on the list is left and right ignitions test.
All right, so for the ignition test, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back up to the top panel where we have our ignition switches. So like I kind of said during the pre-flight, these ignition switches control our CDIs, which is a capacitor discharge ignition. So for those of you that fly other planes like Cessnas, it is our equivalent to a magneto. These are carbureted engines. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our CDI. This is either A or B on the right engine. So while I flip this off, we're going to watch our RPMs. So there it goes off, and we see a little decrease in RPM. You can hear it too, kind of slow down.
I can feel it.
Yep, so once we got that down, we'll turn it back on. RPM should climb back up. So what we just did right there by turning this off is we just turned off half of our spark plugs. So each cylinder in the engine went from having 2 spark plugs to 1. And we're just making sure that all those cylinders are still firing. We're still getting power. So we'll go ahead and check the other set. So we'll go ahead and turn this off. We get a nice decrease in our RPM. Back on, and it should increase. Now we just turned off those other 4 spark plugs. So the right engine is good. And we'll do the same thing with got our decrease in the RPMs. Get it back on, it jumps back up. The other CDI will get it off. RPMs decrease, and they increase. So that is our ignition check right there.
All right, we want to do carb heat test.
All right, so carb heat. So like we set off earlier our carb heat here. So just like normal engines have carb heat, when we turn these on, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be recycling some of that hot air from the exhaust, and we're going to be putting it into the carburetor. So this is going to help burn off any ice in case we do go into IMC. But more importantly, what we're going to look for right now, since we're not actually in it, a decrease in power. So as we get that hot air going into the engine, it's going to be less dense, which means we're going to get less power. So we're going to do one at a time. I'm going to start with the right engine. As I bring this all the way down, we can see a drop in power. You can hear it.
Feel it again.
We'll go back up, and power should come back. And we'll do the same thing with the left side. All the way down, that power drops. Over, bring it back off, and the power increases. So the carb heat is checked.
Carb heat done. Next on the list is going to be props governor test.
All right, so the prop governor test. So we're going to do like a really straightforward kind of feather test that this is kind of like what we run on the King Air, where we're going to take both of our prop switches here. I'm just going to pull both of them back slowly to the point where I start seeing the power drop. And bringing these guys back, what we're doing is we're listening and also watching. We're going to start to see a power drop. There we go. You see the RPMs decreasing, you can hear it, and we'll bring it back to full. The power should go back to normal. Both the governors are working.
Perfect. And now we're doing engine gauges check.
Alright, so again with the engine gauges, we're just going to run over everything that we already did. We're looking at our RPMs, which look great. The cylinder head temperatures are normal. Oil temp has come up, and the oil pressure is within the green and staying.
Alright, let's move to throttle idle.
Alright, so throttle idle. So this is another important one that a lot of people look over. So it doesn't have to be quick, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to push both of our throttles all the way down as far as they go. Now, it's really important that you go all the way down, because what can happen with the carbureted engines is these are manually calibrated by maintenance technicians. And what can happen with some of them, and it's happened before, where when you go all the way idle, the carburetor completely cuts off the airflow to the engine and it shuts off the engine. So it's really vital that you test it now to make sure that full idle does not kill either of your engines. So that is good.
Definitely something you'd want to figure out on the ground and
Yes,
not in the
not
air.
in the air. Some good training, but not fun training. So after we do that, I'm going to bring the power back up a little bit, just again to help the gearboxes kind of, it extends their lifespan.
Alright, and finally for the run-up we have takeoff brief.
Another really important factor, if it's the same student that I've flown with 20 times or, you know, a brand new person, we do these takeoff briefings every flight because it is important as a crew that we both know what we're going to do if we have an emergency. For our safety briefing, what we're going to talk about, first things first, is any abnormalities on the runway. Anything that we see as we increase power, if we see any gauges we don't like, if you're not feeling it, anything coming across the runway, what we're going to do is power idle and brakes. Abort the takeoff. Once we get to our rotate speed at about 55 knots, once we're at 55 knots, we're committed to flying at that point. So as we start to rotate, if we have anything happen and we still have runway remaining, whoever is flying has the authority to cut the power and get back on the runway.
Land in front of us.
Yep. Now, what I prefer to do just from my training in the 135 world is once you pass that rotation speed is you're committed to flying. So in the case that I'm flying, if we're flying and we lose the engine up in the air, I'm committed to continuing the flight. So what's going to happen is if I'm flying and we take off and we lose an engine, we see anything weird and we're already up in the air, we're going to run our flows. We're going to make sure that our throttle is full, our props are forward, our flaps are up, and our gear is up. So we're going to clean up and we're just going to keep flying. Once we're at a safe height, we can start trying to figure out what went wrong and make our turnaround back in. So we'll make sure our flaps are up, our gear is up, we'll continue, we'll declare emergency, we'll secure our engine, we'll get back in. Any questions from you?
That all sounds pretty straightforward.
Alright, sweet.
Alright, takeoff briefing is complete. That concludes the run up here, so we're done with that. What we are going to do, we're running out of light, but we're going to try and show you guys the before takeoff checklist as well. Okay, so standby AI as required.
So again, we're going to double check that everything looks fine here. We're going to double check our altimeter setting matches with what we had, so that is set.
Okay, PFD bug set.
So this would be in the case, you know, if you're IFR, you want to make sure you have your runway heading inputted.
Boom, it is.
And then if we're going to a certain altitude, you can bug it to 3,000 or something. There you go, 1,200.
Perfect. Alrighty. And we're going to go transponder set.
So we're doing a VFR flight, so we're going to keep it VFR. If we were IFR, that's what we'd put in our code.
Perfect. Flaps takeoff.
The flaps, we're going to confirm flaps are takeoff, which they are set.
Boom, done. Instruments check.
So we're going to do one last overview. Again, I like to do before takeoff while sitting in the run-up because it's a lot to kind of run before getting on the runway.
Definitely.
So while we're sitting here, again, we're going to double check everything. Just make sure all of our gauges are in the green. Make sure we still have the fuel quantity that we want and we're looking for. We have our fuel pressure. Everything up here looks normal. We have no enunciator error. It's all good.
Alright, so that's all the instruments checked, and the last one's going to be the trims. We know the trims are set from when we did them earlier, but, you know, let's say we had some extra weight in the back. We might want to put the nose trim a little further forward, make some little adjustments on takeoff, because in the checklist before, we just made sure they were in the center, but, you know, if we had any other factors, we want to adjust them now.
So yeah, every single plane has their kind of sweet spot, so you want to make sure that's set up for that.
Alright, and that brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for helping us out today, Andrew.
Absolutely, thank you, yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave us a comment. Let us know if you like this type of video.
Twin Tecnam 955 Golf Victor Taurus ground. Are you okay with taking a ramp, or do you need to use Alpha?
You know, now that we're not doing the south pattern, I'll do anything to help you out so we can take the ramp.
For 5 Golf Victor, Roger, that's nice of you. Taxi 217 via Juliet and ramp.
Juliet and the ramp, 5 Golf Victor. Have a good night, sir.